Welcome to the Simply Sales Podcast. This podcast is where we share and discuss our experiences and ideas in the world of sales. Each week we will provide you with actionable content to help you improve your sales game. We hope you enjoy this episode. Welcome to episode 010 of the Simply Sales Podcast. On this episode I want to share with you my passion for self-development, continual education, and at the end I'll give you some of my personal preferences towards authors and books or audiobooks that you can listen to that will definitely help you in your career, personally, life, business, whatever, it will help you. So just to give you the background information about myself and my education. So I hated school, okay? I left school at 15. I decided not to take my GCSEs because I hated school. I couldn't learn. I couldn't focus. My teachers always said that I'd never amount to be anything. They convinced me that that was the case. So I literally bombed out of school, left school at 15, took no GCSEs. Now, if you're not from the UK, the GCSEs are what you need, and you need certain levels to then be allowed to go into further education. So you can do your A levels, or you can go to college or university. Without any form of GCSEs on your CV, most employers tend to frown upon it, and you can definitely not go into any form of further education without some form of GCSEs. So I left school at 15. My parents were quite old school in their approach. They sat me down and they said to me, look, Phil, if you're not going to go to school, then you need to get a job. So I found a job working as a trainee bike mechanic part-time, and I was earning £20 a day because I was 15. And for me, it was more about getting out of the house, trying to, find a career without any form of qualifications, and that's kind of what I fell into. So I was earning 20 quid a day, and I'll be honest, I enjoyed it, I loved it. I did it for 2 years, and then on my 17th birthday, a couple of months later, I passed my driving test, and I wanted and I needed more money. So I approached the owner, explained the situation. He said, look, I'll be honest, I can't pay you any more money. So I said, fine, no problem. I need to look at getting a job somewhere else. So I went home, I spoke to my parents, and I was having a look through the local job section in the local newspaper, and there was a job advertising for people to clean cars in the local car wash. Now, that wasn't something that I'd always aspired to do. I wasn't a child at school and said, all my friends around me saying I want to be a fireman or I want to be a policeman. I definitely did not at school say I wanted to clean cars. So I knew it was temporary, but at the time it was a job and it paid me more than 20 quid a day. And that was the most important thing to me at that time. Now, I bet you're thinking, well, what does this have to do with book recommendations? Well, this was, if I hadn't have gone to this job cleaning cars at the local car wash, I would never have been introduced to any form of self-development or continual education. I might have done, but it might have been a lot later in my journey in my life. Now, I remember it like it was yesterday. I was hoovering the back of a BMW and I heard this voice coming through the speakers, and something clicked at that moment. I instantly knew that I wanted more, that I desired more, that I could do better, and that this was not the end of my journey, okay? That cleaning cars was just a stopgap, and there was something else I needed to do. I wasn't sure what it was, but I knew that I had this burning desire inside me to be better. So I got out of the car, I'd finished hoovering it. I told the guy that owned the car, I told him that I'd finished cleaning, and I said to him, just one last thing, just before you go, please tell me who that was on the coming out of the speakers. And the driver of the car pulled out the CD case from the glove box, and it was a guy called Anthony Robbins. And at that time, I'd never heard of the guy. It was an American, deep American voice, and I just felt connected to it. I felt connected. It was such a charismatic voice, and I was hooked. So this was in sort of 2002, and we didn't really have the internet at home, and the only place you could get the internet was at the library. And iTunes, audiobooks, podcasts, they weren't really around at that time, and if they were, I definitely didn't know about them. So I popped down to my local Waterstones, my local bookshop, and I ordered the CD. I had to wait like a week or two for it to come in, and I think at the time it probably cost me about 20 quid. So it probably cost me half of my sort of daily wage at the time, but I saw there was a value in it. There was something that I needed to get it. I needed to listen to it. I needed to understand the whole thing. I needed to know what it was about. Now, at this point, I'd kind of been introduced to self-help and self-development, and my opinion on learning and educating myself had changed. So I'd gone from being this 15-year-old child who completely bombed out of school, left with no exams, hated school, hated learning, to then 2 years later having the complete opposite opinion of learning. And all of a sudden I found that I was reading books, I was listening to audio on CDs, and my life had completely changed in that respect. My outlook on life, the perspective, everything had changed all of a sudden within a 2-year period. Now, if you fast forward to 2018, I still enjoy and I love learning. I love the process of implementing what I've learned. Now, I listen to audiobooks, I listen to podcasts every day. I listen to them in the car, if I'm out walking, if I'm on the train, whatever I'm doing, anywhere that I can put some headphones in and put on an audiobook, put on a podcast, and get some enjoyment from learning, then 100% I'm there. And that allows me to leverage my time. So do not underestimate, self-development, continual education. Continually educate yourself through reading and listening and learning from other people's stories and mistakes, because definitely it can help you. And even if you don't learn anything but it motivates you, then it was worth listening to it. It was worth buying that audiobook. Hell, listen, you could listen to podcasts all day long, and they're free, so they're not going to cost you a penny. It's not like I'm saying to you go and sign up to a 3-day training course or seminar that's 200 quid, 300 quid, £500, £1,000. That's not what I'm saying. But continually educate yourself, and something that you can do early on, which is, if you're listening to this podcast, that's great. That's the first steps. But then if you wanted to then invest in yourself, you can then buy some audiobooks. You can buy some physical hard, paperback books. So always continually educate yourself. So what I want to share with you is some of my favourite authors and books. Now, this is in no particular order, but hopefully you will, if you've never heard of these people, then definitely have a look at it on the internet, Google it, and so on. So the first one's Anthony Robbins. Awaken the Giant was the first one that I'd ever listened to. So that one will always, stick in my mind, and I'll always remember it. The next book was the first book that I was introduced to when I first started selling, and that was a book by Richard Denny called Selling to Win. Now, Selling to Win helped me form my sales career, and again, I will always keep that book with me, and I will always revisit that book because it's good to sort of go back to it every sort of 6 months or so. One of my more favourite recent authors is a guy from the UK, and his name's Rob Moore. Now, Rob Moore has written several books. He is a very entrepreneurial, influential person in the UK, very big in the UK property scene, but he's also very big into personal development and helping people and so on. So one of his books that I thoroughly enjoyed and I constantly go back to is Life Leverage. His most recent book is Start Now, Get Perfect Later, and he's written a couple more books along the way, but they're my two personal favourites. And off the back of Start Now, Get Perfect Later was my motivation to launch a podcast and share the information that I've learned along the way. So if you do enjoy the podcast, you've got Rob Moore to thank for it and writing the book Start Now, Get Perfect Later, because if he hadn't have written that book, I probably would have kept putting it off. Oh no, it's not right yet, or I'm not ready, or I need to do some more research. So thank you, Rob. I doubt that you're listening to this, but if you are, thank you so much. Another guy from the UK is Brad Burton. Now, he's written a few books called Get Off Your Ass, Get Off Your Ass 2, and Life Business Just Got Easier. They're very easy to read, very actionable along the way, so 100% go and check out Brad Burton. A couple of the other big names that I've got are Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, Grant Cardone, 10X Rule, Sell or Be Sold, and Gary Vee, Crush It. Obviously, they've written other books along the way, but they're my personal favourites. So, if you've never heard of any of these guys, just go onto Google, go onto YouTube, type their names in, and you'll be able to find all the information that you can about them, and hopefully you can get some form of inspiration, and you can learn something from them. Also, I do enjoy, as weird as this sounds, because I've never really been a person that likes reading books or anything like that, but I've also enjoyed autobiographies of entrepreneurial people. So, I enjoy listening to their journey and their troubles and how, where they started, what happened along the way, and then where they've ended up now. And I find that quite motivational. So the biggest one that I like is Total Recall by Arnold Schwarzenegger. So if you have a spare, I think it is approximately 20 hours to listen to the audiobook, I thoroughly recommend, if you're going on a long haul flight or anything like that, I thoroughly recommend that you download the audiobook and you listen to it, because honestly it is amazing. Now, there's a couple of things that I can give you that will help you instantly from a couple of these different books and stuff that I've read and listened to. Now, the first one is Rob Moore, in his book Life Leverage, talks about income generating tasks. So he talks about focusing on income generating tasks. Now, that may sound very basic in itself, but actually sometimes in life and in business we get sidetracked, and sometimes we do take the easy route. So rather than making those sales calls or following up on the inquiries or whatever, it's easy to kind of sort of bury your head in the sand and say, well, actually, no, there's something else that's more important to do. Whether that's, tidying the shop or whatever it is. So I used to have on my desk, written down on a piece of paper, I used to have IGT, and I used to look at it every minute of every day that I was in the office, because when I did that, I instantly, if something was to distract me, I would look at the paper and I would see the three letters IGT, and instantly I thought, income generating tasks, what can I do to generate some revenue? Who can I help that's then gonna in return earn me some commission? So I had IGT written on that piece of paper, and that just helped me stay focused, keep motivated, and keep pushing. I also had on that same piece of paper written down Who's Got My Money. Now, Who's Got My Money, I believe, is from the 10X Rule by Grant Cardone. So I used to have, as I've said, IGT and Who's Got My Money. And I had those both written down on a piece of paper, and I could look at it every minute of every day, and I knew that if I did that it would help keep me focused on the income generating tasks of the business. And to this very day, I still do that now. I still have IGT and Who's Got My Money, except for now it's not on a little piece of paper in my office in the job that I work in. It's in my garden office, and it's on the wall in front of me. So every time I look up in front of me, I have IGT and Who's Got My Money. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I hope you found some form of value in it. If you have, please like and share the podcast. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, we'd really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star review on iTunes or Stitcher. If you'd like to connect with us, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Simply Sales Podcast. Alternatively, you can head over to the website simplysalespodcast.com.